The Army of Nothing. Translated from French by Kelsey and A Queen of Fairies. For Kodlyoko.fr. Proofreading by A Queen of Fairies and Kelsey. Images and formatting by Aquaticklefik.
Tonight it will be 10 years since I first met her, and I've decided the time has come to tell our story, to reveal the incredible facts that we witnessed together. Yumi Ishiyama, Ulrich Stern, Odd de la Robia, and myself, Jeremy Belpois. And Alida, naturally. Not one day has passed when I've not thought of you, Alida. This history is for all of my friends, but it is above all else for you, Alida. Goodness knows if you're still listening.
Jeremy. Prologue. Nocturnal meeting. Grigory Nictopoulos was visibly nervous. It was an unusual sensation for him, and that made him even more nervous. It was night-time, and the man was silently waiting on the border between Caddick Academy and the garden of the house that had once belonged to Professor Hopper, the Hermitage. Behind him was a barrier of planks separating the park from the garden. In front of Grigory, a veritable jungle of trees so tall that they seemed to claw at the sky with their branches, hiding the school buildings from his sight. The man sighed. Beneath his right armpit he could clearly feel the weight of his gun, a large desert eagle so powerful it could take down a rhinoceros with a single bullet. He carried his hunting knife and 4 hand grenades attached to his belt, while the cartridge belt of a machine gun sat diagonally across his chest. He was armed enough to take on an army, but this night he wasn't awaiting any ordinary army. Grigory listened intently. From the school hidden behind the curtain of vegetation came the sounds of battle, shouting, and the explosions of many windows being shattered to smithereens. He increased his grip on the leash he held in his left hand, and observed the 2 dogs lying by his feet, Hannibal and Scipio, his enormous Rottweilers, muscular, heavy beasts with bad tempers who he had personally raised to become wild combat animals. But they were both now lying on the ground, close together and with their muzzles resting between their front legs. They were very scared. All of a sudden, the dogs leapt up, turned their mouths towards the scrub, and began to make a hoarse growl in unison. Grigory drew the leash back to keep them at bay. After several moments, he started to hear something. It was a deep sound, like metal moving through mud, heavy steps made by something inhuman that was advancing towards them from between the trees. The man placed a hand on the butt of his gun, better to be safe than sorry. Finally, the first soldier arrived from beneath the trees. It was easily 2 meters tall, and as solid and imposing as an armoire that had been lifting weights at the gym. It wore shiny bronze armor, and its face was a blank, dark metal mask with a series of yellow lights that glowed and dimmed at regular intervals. From its head came a waterfall of black cables that ended in electrical plugs. Hannibal and Scipio both let out a few barks and jumped behind Grigory with a single bound, pressing themselves against his legs. Grigory didn't want to show his fear in front of the scary being, and so he cleared his throat before speaking to it in the driest way he could manage. "Did you bring what we asked for?" was all he could say. The soldier gave no sign of having heard him and simply passed by him, moving through the barrier towards the Hermitage. The man realized that the creature's steps seemed less sure and shakier, and its armor was even less shiny than usual. It seemed to be becoming translucent, like a ghost. More soldiers exited the trees. They marched in double file, and only the row of small yellow lights across their helmets animated their inexpressive faces. Some of them were as solid and compact as mountains, while others seemed intangible. Grigory noticed that their breastplates were covered in strange chemical substances, and their imposing armor had some holes here and there. The battle must have been harder than initially expected. One of the soldiers approached Grigory and held out its hand, offering him a palm computer not much larger than a regular mobile phone. Its screen was lit up. "Thank you," said Grigory, taking the device. Without response, the soldier reunited with its peers and continued its march towards the Hermitage's basement. There, the scanner column would swallow them up, making them disappear forever. Grigory now felt calmer. Once their mission was complete, the soldiers created by Xana would auto-destruct, just like they had planned. He tugged on Hannibal and Scipio's leashes to convince them to get up, and walked through the barrier with them, entering the Hermitage's backyard. The house was a narrow 3-story construction, with a gable roof. On its left, a garage with a flat roof sat against one of the side walls. The sliding door was open, and the creatures marched in this direction to access the basement. Grigory turned to 2 human soldiers, who had frozen at the abnormal sight of the robot parade and let out a crazed, hoarse laugh. "Don't worry, children," he said in a mocking tone. "Those boogeymen won't hurt you. Haven't you seen their armor? They're becoming transparent." One of the soldiers tried to babble something in response, but Grigory shrugged. "Once they've come through," he ordered them, "immediately close the barrier. And don't forget to warn me if anything weird happens." This said, the man and his 2 dogs walked around the side of the house. The pickup was parked on the road, outside the front door. It was red and seemed rather beaten up, but beneath the rickety facade hid a veritable race car. Gregory had tuned the motor himself. The man climbed in and sat Hannibal and Scipio on the ample back seat. He then sat in the driver's seat, breathing heavily as he took the palm computer the soldier had delivered to him. He observed the incalculable mass of numbers and other characters that shone against the black screen. Gregory didn't understand one iota of it all, but he did recognize one word that flashed in the upper left part of the mishmash: Aelita, the name of Hopper's daughter. It remained to be seen why Hannibal Mago was so interested in this thing. Gregory hadn't the slightest idea, but during the many years he'd spent working for the man, he had learned one thing. It's better to ask few questions, keep your eyes open, and always have a way out. He took out a flash drive from the glove box and connected it to the palm computer, registering a copy of the device contents. It was a mere precaution. Maybe, on the day when he least expects it, Mago will turn his back on him and this data, whatever it may be, will be more useful to him. Gregory turned and distractedly stroked his two dogs. "Come on, my pretties," he whispered to them. "Best not to keep Mago waiting."